Hello, everyone. It's Mal. Welcome back to the Doll Mom Podcast. It is the last episode of 2025, and it's kind of crazy sitting here being like, this is the last time I'm doing an episode for 2025, which is absolutely crazy that another year has flown by already. So what are we going to be talking about in this episode? So I do these kind of reflect episodes every year. It's something that I look forward to, honestly, every year, getting to talk about what has happened with the podcast over the past year, reflect upon the amazing year that the Doll Mom Podcast has had. 2025, I feel like, has been just an extraordinary year for myself, and I cannot wait to talk about it and to kind of look ahead to 2026 with the podcast, with myself, and with everything else going on in life. So without further ado, let's get this episode started with. Like I said, 2025 has been such an amazing year. Definitely amazing year in the books, for sure. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than it was a really good year. I think 2024 and 25 are like the two best years that I've had. Okay, so let's officially talk about what happened with the Doll Mom Podcast. Starting in January, I did like a exclusive questionnaire interview type thing with Good Pods. That is something that I was like, this is like really fun. Like I never really got to, I guess, really done anything like that before, sit down on my computer and really like discuss, oh my goodness, like my favorite episode or like which episodes people should start to listen and like different things like that. I'm like, I never really thought about this before. It took a lot of thought and kind of like wording and stuff like that, like I feel like I'm not a word person, like especially when it comes to like sitting down and talking about things, which I feel like is super duper funny because, it's like I'm not a word person, but here I am, I'm talking about a podcast, whatever. But anyways, I feel like it's just really hard for me to put stuff into words. It's what I'm trying to say, especially when it comes to like people's birthdays and stuff and like Christmas cards every year when you're like writing, things about the person. And it's like, oh, I don't know what to say other than you mean a lot to me, like I feel like I'm so awkward with words and all this. But anyways, it was fun. I really enjoyed that little bit that I got to do. We also posted episode 34 with Emma at AG Dollies Forever. And in that episode, we talked about her doll stories and our dreams for American Girl. I was so nervous to ask Emma to come on. I don't know why. I think it was just because I never really talked to her before. And this past year, I really pushed myself to ask people to come on, and especially people that I've never talked to. And honestly, I'm so glad I asked her to come on because she's like one of my I consider her to be like such a really good doll friend of mine now. Like I love her so much. Before I invited her onto the podcast, I watched her YouTube videos because before I ever have somebody on, I like to, I call this researching them, but like not really, because before I even was considering sending her a message to have her on, I was watching her, on YouTube and stuff. I'm always looking for new people to watch on YouTube, by the way. Like I'm always looking for recommendations and all this. So if anybody has any, send them my way. Anyways, so I was really into her videos. I really enjoyed when she posted videos on YouTube. And when I sat down to really plan and think about all the people that I wanted to have on in 25, I was like, why don't I ask Emma? Because I just think it would just be amazing, like our episode. And I feel like we could talk about so many different things. And so I sent her the message. I was so nervous to send it because that was like really the first time we've ever talked. But like I said, I'm trying to really push myself. So I really enjoyed having Emma on this past year on the Doll Mom Podcast. And actually, fun fact, that was my first episode that I've ever recorded in 25. And I remember the day very well. We were in the doll room and it was snowing outside. It was a day where we had like a winter storm warning or something crazy. We had a snow day, I think, for sure. My internet got knocked out the hour before the podcast, like the recording was supposed to happen, and I was freaking out. I was so stressed out. It was bad. It was awful, actually. Like, that amount of stress. I don't like wish that on anybody, because I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't want to reschedule. Like, this is awful. I feel like it looks so bad if I reschedule, you know? I don't know. It's just a thing. It probably doesn't look that bad at all, but I don't know. It's just a stigma I have on myself, I guess. Anyways, it was so stressful the hour before, and my internet didn't come back up until like 15 minutes before, because I was just like thinking to myself, what can I do? What can I do? I had all these like devices out. Like, I had my phone ready. I was like, because I didn't know how to restart the internet. My dad has it. And plus, my dad was in the process of getting us a new internet thing too. So it was like in between internet stuff. It was awful. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, that's a fun fact about that episode. This amount of stress and freaking outness that I experienced an hour before. Okay, February I was really sick. I got sick with like the flu like multiple times within that month. Like, it was bad. Like, I was really sick. And so we celebrated 4 years of the podcast, but I did that late because I was sick. And then I also posted episode 35 late because I was sick. So I posted episode 35 with Audrey at Definitely. We talked about her doll story and being a doll social media content creator. I really enjoyed having Audrey on. Oh my goodness. Like, I feel like we had so many fun guests in 25, and I absolutely loved every single one of them. And I loved every single guest that we've had on the podcast in general. Audrey was so much fun. I really enjoyed that episode and having her on, and it was actually our biggest episode on Spotify this past year. So thank you all so much for listening to that episode. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast in general, to all the episodes. But yeah, that was so much fun. I don't think I have a crazy story like I have with Emma's. March was also the time where we hit over 40 countries listening to the podcast, which is crazy. That is insane. Well, more countries now, but it's so crazy how many people listen. Thank you so much for listening. We also ranked number 5 in the best 20 doll podcast by Million Podcast. Thank you so much, Millions Podcast. It's crazy to me that people think that my podcast needs to be on different lists. And I really say that. Like, I know I say, it's so crazy to me, this and that, and that's because it's true. I hope it never comes off that it's not like authentic or like I don't mean it, because I really do mean it. I really do appreciate so many people who listen to the podcast and who follow, who like, who comment, who do all these different things. Like, I really appreciate everybody. We also got on the Apple Podcast charts in the United States. We were number 206, okay, I'm going to tear up here. Like, that is so crazy to be ranked and to be on an Apple Podcast chart in the country that you live in. I feel like that's just a whole thing, and it's crazy. And then, after that, we charted so much in Canada this past year. I actually got an email the other day that we were in the 40s and number 63 too. We were in the 40s and 60s under hobbies. That's the podcast category. Because when you have a podcast, for people who don't know how podcasting works, when you have a podcast, you have to put it in a category. And I was under kids and family for a long time, because when I started podcasting, I feel so old because I'm like, back in my day. Anyways, when I started podcasting, there was only like very few categories. So the only category that worked for me when I started was like kids and family. So I was under that for a while, and then they added more categories. And so then I switched it last year to hobbies, because I feel like that represents the podcast more. Not to say that people can't listen to it with their family, or people can't listen to the podcast because they're kids. Like, no, the podcast is for everybody, okay? I just thought hobbies fit because, doll collecting is like a hobby of mine, and I feel like it's kind of labeled as a hobby. If there was a category for toys, I would probably brand the podcast I would put the podcast underneath that. Or if there was individual toy categories such as dolls, I would put the podcast under that. But there's not. I feel like the best thing, and I still feel like the best thing when I made the decision last year and currently, is hobbies. So it's just so insane, okay? Like, it's thank you so much for listening wherever you are in the world. We also posted episode 36 with Alexis at confetti_AG. We talked about her doll story and what it was like working at American Girl Dallas. This was the first episode where I started recording for the Behind the Mic series that I did. It was like it's a long video on the YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel, but I did a behind the scenes kind of vlog video type of what it kind of looked like creating podcast episodes. I did 3 episodes from start to finish. We did episode 36, episode 37, and episode 38. And so episode 36 with Alexis, that was the first episode that you guys saw if you watched that video. And I do have a crazy story, which you guys kind of saw happening. But before recording that, it was the night before we left for LA. So I should have been packing, but instead I was up recording a podcast. And I also stayed up really late that night packing for LA because we left the next day after I recorded that episode. But the day that we recorded it, the night, it was storming crazy. Before I even started recording the footage of me setting up the podcast stuff in the video, we were in the storm shelter because of tornado warnings. Like, it was crazy severe weather. It was so insane. And I was so nervous, that the internet was going to go out, or like, I haven't had it happen yet where the sirens are going in the background and we're recording and I'm like, oh, like, especially with a guest, I've had to have close calls, I will say. There's stuff that's ended before that's happened and happened after that happened, but I never had it during, knocking on wood, that 26 doesn't bring that, because I think it would be really awkward to be like, I'm going to have to cut you off. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I think it would be so awkward, but you know what? It'll be okay. We would navigate that if it happened. But that's my crazy story, I guess I have for it. We don't really have many crazy stories, I don't think, looking ahead. But anyways, it was so much fun having Alexis on. She's one of my good friends, and getting to have her on was so much fun. I loved it. Going to April, I posted episode 37 with Dr. Robert Jason Grant at Play Therapy, aka my uncle. In that episode, we talked about using dolls in therapy, American Girl resources, and doll industry representation. It was actually my uncle's idea to come on. I wanted him to come on. He was in the idea list to come on at some point. But he actually reached out to me and he was like, hey, I have this idea. And I was like, I'm down. Like, let's actually do this since you have the idea, even though I've already, like, in my head, I already decided that I wanted to have him on at some point, just didn't know when. And so I was like, okay, we can work him in. Like, let's do this. So yeah, that was such a special episode. I feel like that's one of the most meaningful episodes that I've ever done. And it's also, so much more special because he's my uncle, like family. I love having family on the podcast. I mean, we had my mom on, we had my dad on, now we have my uncle on. LOL, we'll see who comes on from the family in 26. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was really special to have him on. And I remember kind of just tearing up after having him on, after we recorded that. That was actually a really emotional weekend for me. Because Cassie got married, and that was like it was the first wedding I was a bridesmaid in, which I love Cassie at AG Kristen09. She's one of my really good friends, and we actually recorded the episode the day before her wedding. So I was recording the episode, I had to eat lunch, and then I went down to her wedding venue and we did the rehearsal thing, and then the next day was her wedding, and and then it was Easter. Like, so many fun things happened that weekend. It was a very busy weekend. Yeah, I remember being very emotional afterwards just because I was so proud of it, and I kind of thought in my head, okay, people are gonna love this because I love this so much, and usually the stuff that I like, my listeners like. Sometimes I'm very off with it, but yeah, I just kind of had this feeling that I think this is going to be something really special, and it was. I got so many sweet little comments and so many sweet messages and all this. And I'm really proud of that episode, and I'm really proud. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so proud of it is because people love it. And I think they kind of love it as much as I do, because I hold such a special meaning to that episode, like I mentioned. And so I think it helped a lot of people, and I think it kind of brought to light important conversations. And then May happens, and we posted episode 38 with Iris at the HIPAA Dolls. We talked about her doll story and the importance of American Girl books. I really wanted to talk about American Girl books on the podcast because we talk about dolls. Well, what comes with the dolls? The books. What is the whole reason American Girl exists? The books. Like, I wanted to shine a light on that so much, and I really think that episode we did. I would love in 26 to talk more about the books. I think that would be so exciting and a topic that we need to talk about more, because I feel like the books can get so disassociated with the dolls from time to time. And I have to admit, when I was little, I disassociated them too. Like, it happens, and I feel like we need to stop that. What made American Girl so beautiful and so glorious is the books and the authors and just the stories and the lessons that you can get out of the books. Anyways, I really enjoyed having Iris on. She's one of my good friends, and I love her so much. June comes along, and the podcast is named Best Doll Podcast by Million Podcast. They give me like a little ribbon and stuff that says Best Doll Podcast, which is so cute. I thought about printing it out and framing it, but I didn't know if that would be like really weird, so I don't know. So that's such an honor. Thank you so much, Millions Podcast, for that. Okay, and then we posted episode 39 with Nancy Holyoke. We talked about being an American Girl author and editor of the American Girl magazine. Okay, this was such a big episode for me, and I posted I think I included the clip of when Nancy emailed me back during the Behind the Mic series. I was so excited. I kind of cried. Like, I didn't kind of cry. Like, I cried because I was just really excited and I wanted to have her on. So how this came to be, I met her in LA. I went to the book signing, and I was talking to her there, and it was so much fun. And my dad's like, why not you invite her on the podcast? And I was like, you think she would say yes? I mean, I don't know. Like, I just met her, and this is like, I don't know. And he was like, do it. Like, you should do it. Like, you need to put your out, encouraging me and all this. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I went back up to her table. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I think it's like along the lines of, I have this podcast and it's doll themed. I would really like to have you on. Would you like to come on? Like, something like that. And she said, yes, like, I'll give you my email. And so she gave me her email, and then I sent her an email like a month later. She came on, and it was so incredible. She is such a sweet person. Oh my goodness. I love Nancy so much. It was so cool getting to hear all about everything. Like, so the recording ends, I'm editing the podcast, and I'm thinking, what can we do to promote this differently? Because if you follow the Instagram, I have like a pattern on how I post about the podcast episodes on Instagram. And my goal going into this year was finding different ways of promoting the podcast and kind of just switching up my posting on like how I post about my podcast episodes on Instagram and on social media in general. I'm like, what if we create this magazine cover? And it's me and Nancy on the cover. And it's like the American Girl magazine kind of logo, and it talks about the podcast episode. And then I was like, okay, we could create this magazine cover, and then we could do like this whole shoot with it, this like photo shoot thing, and then we could like do this like promo announcement thing where we go up to a door, I'm knocking on the door, and then I drop the magazine on the doorstep, and like it was just whole thing. And so I remember being so like giddy about it because I was just like so excited, and I was like, oh my goodness, and I was like, this is gonna be great, like this is like so cool. And so I designed the magazine cover. So I designed the back of the cover, and I print it out, and I tape it on one of my mom's Pottery Barn magazines. A lot of people thought that this was an actual thing that was going to come out. and I'd like to apologize. It's not. I mean, I'm honored that people were excited and people were asking me, oh, where can I buy this? And when can I buy this magazine? I'm very flattered that people would like to have this magazine. I remember sitting in my chair in the doll room and I was like, what did I just do? Like, did I overhype this in my head? Like, did this not work out how I thought it would work out? Like, people thought that I was coming out with a magazine. Like, I was like, oh no, like maybe I should scrap everything else I have. But I was like, no, we're just gonna continue it. And we just gotta word it in a way where the magazine is not happening. It's the podcast episode that's happening. And I remember telling this story to my mom and dad, and they thought it was hilarious, Okay, so I went upstairs and I did the door thing. That is my front door that I went up and I knocked and I dropped the thing on. And that was so hard to film because it was by myself. I did this whole thing by myself, by the way. I took the pictures by myself. I designed the magazine by myself. I made the magazine by myself. I taped it onto whatever. I went upstairs. I filmed that little announcement teaser thing. I did that whole thing by myself. So I'm holding my camera in my right hand. I have the magazine underneath my arm. And then I have to have another hand to knock on it. So I use my left hand. And then I'm awkwardly taking it out and putting it down. That took so many takes. And it was just me by myself doing it. And I really wish I had somebody or I had another camera thing set up, my iPad or something, so I could film and see all the funny bloopers from that of me trying to get it out and be quick enough, because I wanted to do it in one take and I didn't want to speed it up in any way. So it was really hard, but I'm really proud of how it turned out. And then I did this photo shoot thing. We took photos in the doll room. I did that by myself. I set up a light. I took the photos on my phone by myself. I set up the big it was a green screen I used, so I had to edit all the pictures to be black, to have a black background. I did that photo shoot thing by myself. I took it on my phone. I had the lights. I set up the green screen by myself. I had to edit all the pictures. And then if I had more time, which I did make a doll size magazine, and I was going to do a doll photo shoot of the doll reading the magazine, having her headphones on, the phone next to her or her laptop or something next to her, playing the podcast. I was going to do that, but I did not have enough time. And I will say, when I was doing all that, because I did that all in a weekend, the weekend before the podcast episode was going to be out, during that whole thing, not only did I do it all by myself, but I was also recovering from walking pneumonia. So that was something, I got sick with that in June, which I never get sick in the summer. So that was really rough. It was awful. Don't ever get sick in the summer because it's awful. But anyways, well, don't get sick ever because being sick is just awful. But anyways, I mean, you can't say that because everybody's going to get sick at some point, but whatever. Don't recommend getting sick in the summer if you can avoid it, I guess. So yeah, I did all that while I was recovering from walking pneumonia. And I feel like the photos, you can't tell I was sick. So I was pretty proud of myself for that. I mean, maybe you can now that I said that. But anyways, and then after I got everything cleaned up, you know what happened? We had severe thunderstorms and I had to go into the storm shelter for tornado warning. It was right when I got it all picked up. And here's the thing, I was debating on leaving it out too, because I was like, I don't need to pick this up right away. I have such a big headache right now from the lights and being sick and all this. And I was just like, I could wait. And I was like, no, let's just get it picked up. So I got it all picked up. And right when I was putting the last thing away, the sirens, whatever. Finishing thoughts before I move on to something else. I was really proud of that whole campaign. A lot of people really liked it and really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed it too. I really enjoyed doing everything on it. And, like I said, the goal was pushing myself to do something different. And I feel like that's something totally different, but also relates back to the episode. And that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. That is something that I really want to focus on and really want to do for the podcast in 26 is kind of just doing these different things and promoting it and being really fun with it. So anyways, I really enjoyed that. And it also kind of gave me the confidence and kind of, put in the thoughts of maybe I should start a magazine. I don't know, adult themed magazine. I think that would have been really fun because a lot of people said that they would really, really liked the magazine that I used to promote the podcast, which is not a thing. Like, I mean, it could be a thing, but like, it's not. And I was really flattered about that. And I got to thinking maybe I should look into starting a magazine. I don't know. 26, maybe. Who knows? In July, episode 40 happened. This was a solo episode. In that episode, I shared my doll story. I talked about 40 episodes, and I shared some summer plans. That was a rough episode. I really struggled with coming up with what I should do for 40 episodes because I kind of knew it was going to be a solo episode. And I was like, what do I do in it? And during like the whole recording process, it took me so much longer to record because like nothing was just working out. Words weren't coming to me. Stuff was just everywhere. My mind was everywhere. It was just so rough. Like, I think that's honestly the most hardest episode that I've ever recorded, just because it just wasn't working out like the way I wanted to work out. And I was just like, I had to record that thing so many times. Like, I think it took like 10 recordings or something. And I would get through it like 10 minutes and then and I'm like, nope, this isn't it. Scrap the whole thing. Like, I did that episode so many different times, just because stuff wasn't working out. And I think that's something that the internet doesn't talk about a whole lot when you're creating content and stuff. Stuff just doesn't work sometimes. The vibes are not vibing. Whatever it is, your mind might not be in the right place. It could just be an off day where just stuff isn't going how it should go. And that was a day that happened. And so I get done with it. Okay, I finally get done with it. And then the next day, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to change the plans on what I was going to talk about. I can't even remember, like, the original episode, like, what I was talking about in the original episode, because I scrapped most of it, of the original episode, and I just completely redid it the next day, and it was better, so, and I went with that. But, yeah, it was interesting. It was rough. I also want to add in the guilt like factor behind that too, because I was feeling really guilty. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, and I was like just upset at myself. Like, not necessarily, I guess, guilt, but just upset with myself that just stuff wasn't working out and like this isn't going, and I thought it was all my fault and all this. Like, it could just be the universe, it could just be the day, it could just be the time. It doesn't have to be you that messes it up, like, give yourself grace. Especially if you are somebody who's listening to this right now and you like create content, whatever it is. Like, I feel like we all had that frustration of just stuff not working out and you like scrapping everything, and then you feel really bad to scrap everything because like you took so much time and energy and whatever. Sometimes it just needs to be done, like if I went with what I had for 40, I don't think I would be sitting here proud of it. And so I talked about in the last reflective episode about going with my gut and kind of doing that more. And I went with my gut, like I wasn't proud of this. I didn't like it. And so I scrapped it. And sometimes it works out. And I guarantee you most of the time it works out. If you are going through something like that right now where you're working on something and you need to scrap it and you're feeling really guilty or whatever, don't. It's going to be good. Trust me, trust yourself, trust the process. You got this. In August, I released the behind the mic, what I call to be the behind the mic thing. Okay, it's the behind the scenes video of my podcast where I take you through 3 episodes from start to finish, behind the scenes of what it's like making those, booking guests, recording, editing, posting it out into the world and all this. And there was so much stuff that I could have covered in that. I could have covered the social media stuff, making those posts and figuring out, okay, listening for the episode again and figuring out what I want to pull from that. I could have showed you, solo episodes. I could have done it longer, could have done it shorter. But I did 3 episodes because I thought they don't necessarily combine, but like they come together, like they bleed through, booking guest part and like planning and like all this, like to give you example, if you haven't watched the video, I was booking guest for February the same time as I was for January. So it's like stuff like that. It's like you're working on like 3 episodes at the same time. You're working on 2 different episodes at the same time, and it can get really chaotic really quickly. And I implemented a new scheduling part this past year, and which we can talk about that later, okay? I'm not going to get into that. I have a designated thing for that. But anyways, I really wanted to do the behind the scenes thing for a while because I kind of realized on YouTube that's what people like to see, and that's what videos that I like to watch too. It was really fun doing the recording part. Was not fun doing the editing part because it's 3 months of footage. Because I released footage, well, it was actually more than, no, I would say it was 3 months, kind of pushing 4, because we started it May 2nd, I think, and then we ended it probably in June, maybe. But anyways, it was a long editing thing. It took me I think a week to edit. It was very long to edit because I never edited a 3-month video. That's insane. And plus, I'm a talker too. So it was a lot longer of an edit than what it should have been for somebody who doesn't overshare, I remember at the time being really proud of myself for releasing that. And I thought, editing part looks really good. We had to do different things with editing, finding music and making graphics and stuff. And I was really proud of that. I'm still am proud of that, but I'm more of kind of a critique now at it. I will say, sometimes I go back to old videos and I will watch it and I'm like, oh, that could have been a lot better. And so I'm kind of like that with that, with this video, with that video right now. So yeah, sometimes I'm a critiquer when I go back and listen to stuff, or I go back and watch things and I'm like, oh, that could have been said a lot better, or oh, that could have been edited a lot better. But it's a part of your journey. It's part of the process. So anyways, I'm really proud of that video, and I would love to do something like that again, and maybe focusing on a different aspect, maybe not do it as long, just because that was a long thing to edit. We also released episode 41 in August with Lizzie at American Girl Collector 221. In that episode, we talked about her doll story, American Girl nostalgia, and custom dolls. I was so excited to have her on. I know I say that about every single guest, but it's true. Okay, she was just like Emma. I started watching her YouTube videos way before I thought about having her on. And such a good YouTuber. The YouTubers that we had on and ever, the Doll Mom podcast history, highly recommend you go check them out. Obsessed with her videos. Fun fact, actually, YouTube gives you this whole rewind thing where it gives you your top people you watched, and they were in my top people that I watched on YouTube. So anyways, I was really excited to have her on. I was really excited to hear that she said yes. And during the recording process, she's like, Mel, I've been waiting over here for you to ask me. And I was like, oh my goodness. And here I am freaking out that she's going to say no. And it'd be so awkward. And that episode was so fun. I loved creating that with her. And I loved getting to talk about custom dolls because I feel like we haven't really talked about that on the podcast. And that was really fun. In September, we released episode 42 with Aiden at English Prof Style. In the episode, we talked about her doll story and working at American Girl Kansas City. Oh my goodness. I love it when we have people who worked at doll companies come on, because I think it's so fascinating to hear the behind the scenes details, but just the details of working there and what it's like working for your favorite brand and all this stuff. I think it's just so cool. I'm such a behind the scener, or I don't even know what the right word would that be, but I'm obsessed with knowing what it's like to work at American Girl and all this. So it was really funny because she came to the American Girl Kansas City meetup, which happened in August. And during the meetup, we were talking about the podcast, and she's like, I would so be down to come on. I'm like, let's get you on then. Come on, if you want to, let's do this. And so, yeah, we did it. And there was a lot of technical difficulties during that episodes. I remember on both of our ends, on her end, on my end, but we made it, and it's perfection. I love that episode so much. Funny stuff happened the next 3 months when it comes to podcast posting. So October, we didn't really post one, but episode 43 with Bella, was supposed to be in October, so I consider that to be in October, even though we didn't post it till like the middle of November. I still consider that to be the October episode. So anyways, I love Bella so much. She at Bella's_baby nursery. In the episode, we talked about her doll story, reborn dolls, and her online doll business. Oh my goodness. So actually, how this came up was Bella reached out to me and she kind of just pitched me this whole idea of her coming on. And I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, let's have you on. I never talked about reborn dolls, and I was like, I'm sure other people, I've always been fascinated with reborn dolls because my friends have had them and they've always looked so realistic. I've seen, I follow a couple reborn accounts on Instagram. I love it when they pop up in my feed. And so, yeah, I'm really glad that we had her on. I love Bella so much. Such a sweetheart. Nothing but kind words to say. And her online business, girl, she makes some really cute stuff. Really cute. And then I had this really fun idea to do the episode reveal. So something that's popular in the reborn community, when you get a new reborn doll, you do like a kind of a pregnancy announcement, but like a baby announcement. And so I was like, let's kind of do that with the podcast episode. Kind of going back to what happened with the magazine, how everybody thought I was coming out with a magazine instead of the podcast episode. In my head, I was like, I really hope this doesn't backfire and think that, people think that we're just going to move on. So anyways, I was just like, let's do this. I think it'd be really cute. And so we did it. And I think it was really cute. A lot of people liked it. And kind of going back to October, we added new countries to the listening map. We're listened in over 50 countries now, which is absolutely insane. Oh, here I go. I'm tearing up. I am tearing up about this. I just think it's just so crazy, and it just blows my mind that when we do have new countries that pop up that listens, or, people who message me and be like, oh, I'm doing a listening session over your podcast. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, that's insane. Like, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me, or thank you so much for deciding that you want to take the time and do a whole listening session. Like, that is insane. Thank you so much. So now we're going to be kind of going in December a little bit with episode 44, which I consider to be the November episode. Okay. In that episode, we talked about doll news and getting my doll room holiday ready. I knew this was going to be a solo episode because I did not reach out to anybody in the time that I should have. Okay, I do give myself a little bit of credit, though, that I tried, because I did send different emails to people asking them to come on. Did not hear anything back from them. So, yeah, it was a solo episode. That one was kind of hard to figure out what exactly I should talk about, but I was like, you know what? This is the time of the year that I always love with the doll brands. Doll brands have incredible releases every single year. Let's talk about that. And what's something major going on in my life right now in the doll room? Oh, getting everything ready for the holidays. Let's talk about that. So we did that. And then this is what I consider to be the episode. The episode for December is this episode. So we technically posted 12 episodes this year, which I think is the most that I've posted in a year, because I usually I skip a month. For whatever reason, it happens. And so this year, I kind of didn't skip a month. Okay, kind of did, kind of didn't. So I'm really proud that I was able to post 12 episodes, because if you haven't watched my behind the scenes of my podcast, podcasting is a lot. It takes a lot of time. It does take a lot of effort. I shouldn't minimize it, because you're sitting here, you got to plan the episodes. If you're reaching out to a guest, you got to contact the guest, you got to, get them on the same page, you got to fill them in on all the things, and you got to be on the same page for what you're going to talk about. You got to work out the scheduling, and then you have to record it. And then, recording depends, honestly, usually it takes an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours. And then after that, it's editing it. And then I like to listen to it before I post any episodes. And then I post the episode. But then it's not just posting the episode, it's writing the title, it's writing the description, it's going in and you have to like click all these different things about, oh, is the language clean? Is this a part of a series? Is this an episode number? Do you want to do additional things on Spotify? Do you want to run polls? Do you accept comments on Spotify? And like, do you do a different episode cover? Like, it's so much little stuff. And then on top of that, you have to work on the episode announcement, what you're going to post on social media and all this. So it's all this, like, it takes a lot of time. So I'm very proud of myself that I did it on top of managing other social media stuff, YouTube, weekly uploads, and Instagram. I try to post daily on there. And then not only that, but I'm also a full-time college student and I work. This past holiday season, I worked 2 jobs and I was working 40 hours a week on top of posting twice on my Instagram, doing the daily unboxings of the event calendar and the Truly Me countdown. So I think 2026, coming from me, I think everybody deserves to celebrate themselves a little bit more and to give themselves a pat on the back for the year that you had in 25. Even if it's just surviving, you did it, and you should be proud of that. Be proud of your own accomplishments, and you don't need somebody else to be like, oh, hey, that was actually really great. Like, I'm proud of you for doing this. Like, that was so amazing. To recognize yourself, your amazing accomplishments, your amazing things that you've done. You don't need somebody else's approval to start celebrating you. Okay, so we are now going to get to the part of the episodes where we talk about goals for 26, lessons and stuff that I've learned in 25, some struggles, because I always think it's important to talk about struggles because I feel like the internet is just so, people don't post that they're going through stuff, and it's like, let's talk about it, And then I'm going to share advice and stuff that kind of just, I guess, things that I've learned. So I think starting off strong, kind of what I got into with what I talked about in the previous segment, celebrating yourself, I wanted to add something onto that. Don't feel regret when celebrating yourself. Like, don't feel bad about buying yourself flowers or being like, this is so stupid. Like, why am I buying myself flowers? I should wait for somebody. No, you deserve those flowers. Buy yourself flowers. Take yourself out to the movies. Like, watch your favorite movie. Like, pamper yourself. Like, you deserve it because you have done incredible things. Celebrating myself is something that I've done recently in 25. I just kind of started doing, and I want to continue it in 26. So just this past December, okay, I'm going to focus on this just this past month so far. So I worked 2 jobs on top of doing stuff for social media. Okay, so I've worked 40-hour weeks, and then I would do social media stuff, on top of that. And I was a full-time college student too. So I ended the semester with a 4.0 on top of working 2 jobs and doing all the stuff on social media and everything else going on in life. And so I'm very proud of myself for achieving that 4.0 and for getting everything done and doing everything. A lot of late nights, I will say. I don't know how I'm here right now sometimes. There was a lot of days where I felt that. I'm like, how am I doing this? I don't even know how I'm doing it, but I did it. Something really big of me was going to buy myself flowers. I have yet to buy myself flowers. I'm going to go this week and buy myself flowers. So kind of giving you, I guess, a little bit of example, and something that I kind of want to continue in 26 is just realizing and kind of treating myself like a best friend. Like, if roles were reversed, if I had this best friend who did all these things, achieved a 4.0, worked 2 jobs on top of that, and did stuff a lot on social media, if I was a best friend to myself, I would go buy them flowers. Like, I would do something nice for them. And so that's what I kind of want to bring into 26. It's kind of just treating myself like a best friend. Okay, if I'm really tired, I shouldn't be pushing myself. I shouldn't pushing myself harder than what I'm really bad about pushing myself. Okay, I'm really bad at staying up really late and getting all this stuff done when I'm really tired. But if roles were reversed, if it was somebody else that I was a friend to, I'd be like, go to bed. It's okay. Like, you could do it tomorrow. And so kind of just being like a little bit soft to myself and kind of just treating myself like a best friend, like I said. Let's talk about goals. So a lot of goals happen in 2025, okay? I made a vision board for the first time, okay? I didn't really get stuck into it. Well, I kind of did, okay? It looked really fun because I've seen all these people on TikTok and like some of my favorite YouTubers that I watched, lifestyle-y YouTubers making vision boards. I'm like, man, I want to make a vision board. So that's what I did. I made a vision board. I did it online. And it's my iPad wallpaper, okay, which is very encouraging, okay, because if you make a vision board, like the thing that I get from it, maybe it's different, but you want to have it somewhere where you can look at it and you get inspired, you know, like you want easy access for you to look at it, right? So I look at my iPad a lot when it comes to creating content, so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be helpful because I did have some content things on it, but then I also just had some live stuff on it. I had some doll stuff, you know, different dolls that I wanted to get and stuff. And yeah, a lot of it came true. The vision board really did vision. And so I think I'm going to make it next year, not just because I want stuff to come true, but just to have that same motivation and just inspirement. That's not a word, is it? But, you know, just that same encouragement and just motivation throughout the year. Highly recommend it. It was really fun making it. And I'm really excited to make one for 26, even though like I make it on New Year's Eve, okay? That's my new tradition on New Year's Eve. And this year I'm kind of like, I don't know what to put on it. But then again, last year I didn't know what to put on it either. Pinterest has been my best friend finding stuff and different things. There's one quote that I really wanted to read you, kind of talking about struggles a little bit, that I put on my vision board for 25, okay? And this is a quote that I wanted to take into me for 25 because I felt like this is what I needed from my year in 24. I think I might put it on 26 because it's such a good reminder, okay? This is the quote. I think I read it last year too. I don't know, maybe I didn't. You are not a failure just because you're not where you thought you'd be by now. Wow, I feel like we all need that reminder sometimes. You know, we all get in our head about different things that we want to accomplish. And I feel like society kind of gives us these expectations of, oh, by this age, you need to be married, or by this age, you should own a house, or, you know, different things like that. And I've gotten like really sucked up into that stuff this past year with, especially when I turned 20. And I feel like it kind of hit me again when I turned 22 about, oh my God, in a couple years, I should be married, or, oh my God, in a couple years, I have to live on my own, you know, like, and it's like, why am I stressing out about the future? I should be enjoying my life right now, you know, like I don't need, and even if that time comes when I'm not there yet, when society thinks I should be, or when it's commonly to be by there, that's okay, because this is not society's life journey. It's my life journey, you know, like it's Barbie's dream house. It's not Ken's dream house, you know, like maybe that's a really bad thing to say, like a really bad example or something to pull from. But anyways, like this is your life, and live a life that you want, live a life that you are happy living. And if you're not happy living in it, change it up, you know, like it's your life, do what you want. It's not anybody else's. At the end of the day, it's you and your body. So anyways, I feel like it's such a good reminder, and it's becoming one of my favorite quotes, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's so good. Another thing that I kind of wanted to read off, a quote that kind of happened this past year, that I'm for sure going to put on my vision board for 26, okay? It's okay to cry about stuff that you thought you were over. I needed that reminder a lot, you know? Last year, I went through a lot of different friendship breakups. Healing is a journey, and sometimes it could be a short one, sometimes it could be a long one. And then I also kind of struggled, which is something that I struggled with last year, but this year, it wasn't really struggling with it. It was just, okay, struggling with it, but then reassuring myself, was imposter syndrome. Okay, so this really happened in my school life, not really on the internet, but I thought I would mention it just in case somebody is struggling with it too. During this past year at school, which I'm going to be a senior, like I'm a senior, okay, right now, but I was going to say I'm going to graduate in May, which is so crazy, which is another thing why I think I'm getting sucked into like the whole life thing, because I'm getting ready like to start like a career because I'm graduating with my bachelor's. Like that is insane. I'm not little anymore. It's a whole thing. We're going through it, whatever. And so Anyways, so at school, something that I started this semester was taking graduate classes at the same time as my undergrad. So while I'm completing my bachelor's in business management, I'm also getting my master's of business administration. Those classes are a little bit tougher because they're graduate classes. Something that I was, I thought I've had crying moments over was I'm not capable to be here. Like I was just struggling with imposter syndrome with taking these graduate classes at an undergrad level, because I'm not taking it at an undergrad level. I'm taking it at a graduate level, but I'm taking it while I'm an undergrad. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, but then I was just like, you know what? This opportunity of taking these classes and being admitted into my school's accelerated MBA program would have not happened if I wasn't capable of doing it. And I think that's something that people, if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, you need to remind yourself. The opportunity would not come your way if you weren't capable of doing it. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about goals for 26. Starting with my podcast, so I did this whole planning thing where I really sat down last year. I picked a day and I did it the whole day. Well, not really the whole day, but majority of the day. I sat down and I was like, what do I want to vision? What do I vision in my podcast for 25? And I kind of went through like the guests that I wanted to have on. I really kind of stuck at it with a guest level and kind of just doing how I used to plan them. I used to plan them one at a time, which, okay, great for my anxiety, right? Because I struggled with anxiety pretty bad in middle school. I had to go to a therapist. I had to go to therapy. And that is how I kind of worked a little bit, which is doing one thing at a time. I was like, I would be a lot more successful with the podcast if I did not just work on episodes one at a time. I will say it gets crazy working at multiple episodes at once. And before I did that, I was kind of doing that, but not to the extent like I was doing in 25. I wanted to just plan ahead, So I started reaching out to guests earlier and all this, and it really worked out. And it saved me so much actually stress and anxiety than I thought it actually would. And it was really helpful. I also looked at the social media stuff, and that's where the whole goal of changing up the social media thing came from, too. So it wasn't just the guests and stuff, but anyways, what was I saying before I added that in? I can't remember. But anyways, this year, I am going to do that again. This time I'm going to kind of do it for a whole day, but not really. I'm going to just sit down. I'm going to vision what I want my podcast to be for 26. Okay, what are some goals that I should set with my podcast? Or what's some goals that I want to set for the podcast? Do I want to aim? Where do I want this podcast to go? And, what would be my dream guest to have on, and different people that I think would absolutely love to come on, and people that I would love to reach out to, and people that my listeners would love, people that I want to come on that maybe people would not expect them to come on, and all this stuff. And then I'm also going to kind of look at just some changes. There's some things I want to change with the podcast. Nothing I wouldn't call it dramatic changes. I really want, I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm going to just change different things with social media, how I post about it and stuff again. But also the podcast itself. I kind of want to change up my music, which is kind of weird because I love the music I have, okay? I know some people are not a fan, aka my mom. She hates the music for the podcast. I'm just like, why? It's so much fun. It's a bop. I love the music anyways. But I want to change it, I think it's ready for something different. But I've wanted to change the music for a while, okay? I will say that. But I just haven't figured out how to do that because it's a whole thing when you have music for a podcast than it is to put music in a YouTube video. I don't understand it. I don't know. But anyways, so I really want to make my own music, but I don't know how to make, I'm not a producer. I'm a producer in podcasts. I'm not a producer in music. So that's something I really want to do in 26 is kind of figure out how to make my own music because I think I'd be really proud of it. And I think it would be such a great learning opportunity and something new, can you imagine, I'm sitting in a job interview or somewhere and it's give me a fun fact about yourself. Oh, I made a song for my podcast. I think it'd be such a flex. Anyways, so I really want to figure out how to do that. But also, I don't think, there's a little voice inside me and a thought being I don't know if I could really figure out how to make a song or, something music for my podcast. So there's a little bit of self-doubt, But I really want to sit down and I really want to figure it out because I think I'd be really proud of myself. And plus, I think I would be saving money than finding someone and like having them produce a track and be like, okay, this is what I want it to sound like. When I think of my podcast, this is the songs that like go with the podcast, like the whole vibe and music. Like, so I think it would kind of save me time if I could just, well, maybe not. It'd probably take me longer because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I think it would be really fun. So that's the journey that I want to go on in 26, figuring out and making my own podcast on. If anybody has any advice, let a girl know. Or if anybody can walk me through making my own track on I don't even know the platforms that you make it on. Like GarageBand, I don't know. Is that even a thing? I don't know. But anyways, if anybody has any advice or any tips, please reach out. Let a girl know. It would be very appreciated. Okay, everyone, we have reached the end of episode 45, which is crazy that we're at episode 45. Here we are. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. Thank you so much for all your support throughout the year. I really appreciate it. I always have so much fun with the podcast, and I really love what I do. I love recording. I love booking guests. I love it. I love it all, even though sometimes I will admit I do not like editing it just because I have to be in a certain mindset, but I really just love it. I love doing what I do, and I really hope that you can tell because, I'm a huge music person. I love watching people perform, and some of my favorite performers are the people who you can feel how much they love performing. And I really hope I come across, you can feel how much I love recording or how much I love doing what I do. And if not, then that's something that I really want to get better at. I really want to get better with showing my love. So thanks for listening to this episode, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it. My name is Mal. I am at Dollies and Rainbows on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok. You can honestly find me anywhere on the internet because, I like posting and creating stuff on the internet. What you're listening to is the Doll Mom Podcast. We do have some social media platforms. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok at the Doll Mom Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast this year. Even if this is the first time you're listening to my podcast, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great end of 2025, a great start of the year of 26. And I hope you have just an amazing time until we talk next. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening.